Hi there, my name is Martin Chuck. I'm the inventor of the Tour Striker training products. And if you're getting this video, this is a special video just for you because I really appreciate your patience with your Tour Striker order. You know, there's a lot of things I want to cover in this that I think are going to help you. And you know, I shot the original Tour Striker video a few years back and I did not have TrackMan to help me out. So hopefully you all receive a little bit more information in this video and it helps you play better golf. You know, I've got a TrackMan, I've got a Tour Striker 7X right here, and I've got my Nike 7 iron. I'm going to put a little face spray on both of these. And basically all this is Dr. Scholl's foot powder, but it works really, really well as impact spray because you know right where you hit it. So I've got the TrackMan turned on here, and I'm going to hit a couple shots with my stock 7 iron. We're going to talk a little bit about impact here. And we'll take a look at the numbers, and I want to show you some data. Then we'll go outside and hopefully I can show you how to use your Tour Striker with the most effective use. So let me hit a stock 7 iron here into my net. Really solid strike. And according to the machine, it was pretty good, a little right, probably right fringe I'm going to guess. We'll look at the data in just a sec. But let's take a look at that impression on the face right there. You know, it's pretty easy to see. It's pretty centered. I'd say the dimple pattern on that is, 1, 2. These are different kind of grooves than most clubs. They're a little bit closer together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th groove up. I'd say in traditional irons it'd be 3rd or 4th groove. Now I hit that pretty darn solid. That's out there a long way for a 7 iron. Granted, these lofts are a little strong. We're going to talk a lot about dynamic loft in this session because I think that's really going to help you. Yeah, it's nice looking down there knowing that you hit one in the center. Hopefully I can get another one in the center. Let's see how we do. And that was a bit of a miss. A little higher on the face, but generally centered. I carried that one a little less than the previous one. We'll hit one more shot, then we'll hit some Tour Strikers. That felt pretty nice. May have felt like it went a little right. Not too bad. Okay, pretty good strike. So let's look at the impacts on this club face. Hopefully you can see that okay. I'll come back in the light just a little bit. There we go. You know, I'd say the middle of the strike is more toward the middle of the face, not certainly on the bottom of the golf club. You know, the reason I invented the Tour Striker is because I had a neat gentleman taking lessons from me at a club where I was the director of golf. And the fellow was really trying to scoop the ball off the mat. And I use all kinds of different ways, coaching, to try to influence him to have a little bit of forward shaft lean. Now, I'm not trying to tell you to hit down, and we're going to look at the data here in just a second. In fact, there's very little descent. The descent hitting down, that last shot was 4.8 degrees. We'll look at the numbers in a moment. But what you're going to realize is 12 o'clock on a clock to 12:01 is 6 degrees. So that little sliver of time is 6 degrees. So really the descent, the angle of attack on a golf ball really isn't that much. And I'm not going to tell you to hit down. You know, in the Tour Striker infomercial, the marketing guys use the word hit down, hit down, hit down. I don't tell people to hit down. I think there's plenty of down in golf. What I'm looking for is a strong dynamic loft with a nice shallow strike. So I've got a Tour Striker 7X. I'm going to hit a shot for you. And let's see where the impact happens on the Tour Striker 7X. Hopefully I hit it solid here with the red light on. Tiny little sweet spot I'm looking at down there. Pretty nice strike. And actually I hit that one a little bit better and straighter than my 7 iron. But let's come and take a look at where the impact happened. You know, so hopefully you can see this. Again, I'm going to try to find where the light is there. And that impact was, I'd say on the 2nd groove of the tour striker. A lot of people say, well, Martin, where do you hit this thing? Way up in the middle of the face? And no, you don't. The idea is to get the leading edge of this gizmo below the equator of the ball to present loft to the golf ball. So that was a good one. So I'm going to quit while I'm ahead. We'll hit more outside. But let's take a look at the numbers and I'll explain it. Okay, so we're looking at the numbers on TrackMan here, and what I want to show you is some of the things that technology allows us to do right now. My last shot was this blinking light on here, and I know it's hard to see on that camera, but the blinking light is represented, that's the golf ball, and actually I hit the tour striker straighter than I hit my 7-iron. And the angle of attack minus 4.7 over here. So pretty consistent with I wasn't trying to do anything different than what I normally do with my clubs. Now obviously, I played professionally for a few years, Canadian Tour, Nationwide Tour. Pretty good player, just not quite good enough to be one of the guys you watch on Sundays, but pretty good striker. And always had a passion for coaching and helping people with their golf game. So this stuff fascinates me, and it's a neat tool for me to help you get better. So anyway, this is the tour striker shot. I hit down on it 4.7 degrees. My swing direction was a fraction to the right. So swing direction is kind of like the divot direction. Pretty straight. Club path a little to the right. So this sets up to hit a draw. Face to path. My face was 2.7 degrees close to my path. That shot was pretty much a tight little draw that landed on my target line. It flew 173 yards, which is about what my 7-iron flies. So if I click along here, I've got those 4 shots that I hit for you. And let me see if I can get this thing to work. Come on. Here we go. So I'm going to go to shot number 1. I smashed it. I'm nervous in front of the camera. 179 yards, 7-iron. Swing speed 87 miles an hour. That's a little shy of what a tour average swing speed would be. Again, the important number to look at here, a dynamic loft. The reason that's so important, a stock 7-iron, I want to say it has 35 degrees of dynamic loft. Some have 37, 34. Anyway, newer clubs usually have stronger lofts. This Nike VRS Forged 7-iron, I want to say has 34 degrees of loft on it when it is vertical. Okay. Now you can see that clearly there's a lot of change in what's built into the club and what's presented to the club. And again, I'm not saying hit down a ton because, as you see here, my attack angle minus 4.5. That's not a tremendous amount of down. I get students in here, high handicappers, that hit down 8, 9, 10 degrees. That's more a function of bad path. You can see my swing direction, 0, club path, the net of it is a little to the right. Face angle started this ball to the right. My face to path on this particular shot was open 1 degree. So that's a shot that I started a little to the right of the target line that just went, it was basically a push. And it went 44 feet right of my target line. So that could be on the fringe of a green, that could be on a green, that could be in the water to the right of a green. But anyway, it was a little bit of a push. So these numbers, the thing we're going to focus on with the tour striker is really how do you deliver the golf club with strong dynamic loft, basically shaft leaning forward, what this club head is doing at the moment of the strike, okay, the components of shaft flex, etc., and have a relatively shallow angle of attack. So that's the stuff I want to coach you on with your tour striker, how to get started, how to ease your way into it, and how to become a very effective iron striker. So let's go outside and show you what the common things are about all great iron strikers and how the tour striker is going to help you. I get the question a lot, Martin, can I use the tour striker on range mats? Of course you can use the tour striker on range mats. It's a great place to practice when you can't be outside. I know most of my friends from up north, I'm from Canada originally, you're in a dome in the wintertime, or you're on some place where you can't hit off turf, and you're on mats. And range mats are just fine, but I want to caution you about range mats a little bit. Again, it's not about pounding down, it's about a shallow angle of attack, 2, 3, 4, 5 degrees of descent, which isn't very much, and having that forward lean to take that elevated leading edge of the tour striker and get it slightly below the equator of the ball to present loft to the golf ball. Now, if you're a skier and you've skied on groomed slopes, you know how much easier it is to control your skis. You can get away with a lot of mistakes on groomed slopes. Well, on a range mat, you can get away with a lot of mistakes as well. So what I like to do is I'll take a towel and I'll lay it down behind the golf ball. And I'll leave myself about 4 or 5 inches from the edge of the towel to the ball. The reason I don't put the towel right on the ball, because believe it or not, it's such a shallow angle of attack that if the towel was close to the golf ball, you'd hit it every time. Now, 4-degree angle of attack, like I showed earlier in this video, is just the sliver, and that's about the tour average, is that 4 degrees of downward strike, which isn't much, okay? So I don't want you mashing down. In fact, it's great if you go get some of that foot powder that I sprayed on the face of this. Dr. Scholl's foot powder, it's about $4 in the, maybe $4.50 in any convenience or drugstore, and that'll help you really know where you're making contact. Now again, I've got the Tour Striker 7X here. I've got a tiny little face on this guy anyway, so I really kind of know where I'm hitting it, but it's a great little learning aid to put on the face of your golf clubs to help you understand where you're striking it. So again, if I'm mashing down into the mat, you know, I've got other things at play that I want to address. We'll touch on some of those outside here in a moment. Well, it's a beautiful day at the Raven. I'm outside here. We just did some work inside with TrackMan, and I'm going to hit some shots for you. And you've seen some different examples of low point control with different coaches, but we're going to see some of the essentials of impact that are really, really important here. So let me hit a couple 7-irons here. Pretty nice strikes. So again, I've got that spray on the face, and I'll come up to the camera and we'll take a look, and you can see where the impacts are. Pretty centered and middle of the face, even some got up a little high on the face, but pretty centered on that face. Now that's all well and good. You're saying, Martin, fine, you can hit it well, that's nice, show me how to do it. Thanks for buying the Tour Striker, because this is going to help you a lot. Now you're not going to start off hitting full shots at full speed. You know, what I'm trying to impress upon you is the fact that a golf club starts with a certain amount of degrees in a static position and is delivered dynamically a little differently. You know, the Tour Striker's got this elevated leading edge. And that leading edge is almost, it's 9/10 of an inch off the ground. It's slightly below the equator of the golf ball. Now when we swing a golf club, we have again a fraction of descent, not a ton. I see a lot of people with a very, very steep angle of attack, okay? They would take that rounded sole of the Tour Striker and mash the golf ball into the ground, kind of looks like this. And while you couldn't really see that ball, you know, move out of frame, I just basically crushed it into the ground with the flange of the Tour Striker. That was too steep an attack. Now what we're trying to do when we hit the Tour Striker is we want this shallow strike with forward lean. So here's how I'd like you to get started. I'll hit some shots for you and demonstrate. You know, to be an effective striker, I could do a close-up of these, but trust me on this, my divots are a little left of this white line. I touched the golf ball, then I took a shallow divot. Again, 4 degrees of downward strike, dynamic loft change with a forward leaning shaft. How do I get a forward leaning shaft? Well, a traditional club makes you really nervous about leaning the shaft. Why? Well, it's got a sharp leading edge on it. And if you do this wrong, you can stick the club in the ground and lay the sod over the ball. It really makes a lot of people uneasy. So one of the benefits to practicing with the Tour Striker, while you develop your low point control, which is critical to great play, is the fact that this won't take a huge divot. It's going to skid much like a ski tip along the ground, and it might even produce a good shot for you, but the point is it's going to allow you time to develop your shallow forward approach into the golf ball and then eventually get a more and more precise low point. So when you get your tour striker, go ahead and set the golf ball up just left to center. I play the golf ball a little bit forward, that's my preference, but left to center is great. And how I want you to do this is, let's take some little half shots with all of these touching the ground. We're going to take these little shots, just itty bitty swings. I call them 9-3 swings. So here's a little back swing, a little through swing, and every time I'm going to touch the ground. In fact, that time I touched the ground a little bit on or behind that white line, which is fine because you are training yourself to be okay with a forward-leaning shaft touching the ground. Again, the precision will be built in when you put some reps in with your tour striker. So we're going to start off with a little half swing, and again, you're trying to reduce your dynamic loft. The static loft on this particular tour striker is 35 degrees. Depending on which model you bought, you're going to learn how to reduce that dynamic loft 8 to 10 degrees by a few things, and we'll talk about them. So we're going to start off nice and easy. Hitting little itty bitty shots, 9-3 swings. When you feel that you can go through this little motion here, leaning the shaft a little bit with a shallow strike and presenting loft to the golf ball, go ahead and swing a little bit harder. What I want you to avoid is this big swing like you're trying to hit a home run. Let's start off small and incrementally build our precision with the tour striker. Now, what are the elements of having a precise swing bottom? Does it make a whole lot of sense if our weight goes way to the back foot and has to go way back to the left foot? I know you think, well, no, Martin, of course not. A good golf swing is a very centered motion. My head's not bobbing and weaving up and down, left and right. It's a very centered motion. If you said to me, how do I feel when I swing? I would tell you that I don't feel like I have any shift to my right. I feel like momentum goes to the right, but I feel like my weight stays pretty centered. You know, you've got a 15-pound arm, a 15-pound arm, and a 2-pound club, and when you swing this around you, that wants to pull you out of balance to the right. So it's really critical that you counterbalance that motion by feeling and being aware of a centered counterbalancing event to the left. I'm not saying shift over to the left. I am saying be aware of it and counterbalance that swing so you do keep a steady center. So when you're practicing, my weight is just a fraction on my forward foot. I'm anticipating the fact that I'm going to swing two 15-pound arms and a 2-pound club around me. So I'm going to counterbalance that event. And a nice easy strike with a shallow approach with forward lean, and that's really how you do it. So let's take a look down the line and get into this a bit more. So the sun sets on us here, and we're talking about the tour striker and how you're going to do this. You know, again, it helps if you put a line down, and I don't paint a line. You can stand on a aim stick and create a groove in the grass. Very helpful. So down the line, how are we going to do this? We're going to start with 9-3 swings. Our weight's a fraction left. We're counterbalancing to stay centered in our backswing, anticipating the motion of our backswing around us. So we're counterbalancing and hitting short little punch shots. Now, if I have any forward lean at all, I'm going to present loft to the ball's going to go up. So this is how I get started with the tour striker. Now, when you get your DVD, I go over the grip pretty thoroughly. This is stuff that is above and beyond that I want you to understand, that when I'm playing an iron shot, I'm not really trying to hit it high. In fact, the best iron players de-loft their short irons. They know how to hit their short irons low, and they know how to hit their long irons high. So it's an interesting little balancing act with how you get the golf club on the ball. So now that you have your tour striker and you can get some shots that go up in the air by swinging relatively easily, let's go ahead and add a little bit of swing speed to that. And when I say add some swing speed, you know, I'm not necessarily trying to hit it harder. I'm just going to make a little bit more backswing, a little bit more shoulder turn, and I'll tell you, that is exponentially stronger when it gets to the golf ball. Really, really important. So, you know, in your backswing, I see a lot of students come to the Tour Striker Golf Academy and try to do all this crazy stuff and have super long backswings. Here's a simple thought for you. Let's get your left shoulder down. Let's get your left shoulder to try to work well under your chin, or go from where it starts at address and to occupy the location where your bottom button is in your placard. So I'm going to move my left shoulder down, have a nice centered backswing. And that produces a lot of power for your strike. Now, a couple things about landing at and left of the line, and I'm going to get a standard 7-iron for this. You know, I see a lot of people who hit a lot of fat shots. And why would they hit fat shots? Well, they hit fat shots because they don't transport enough angles to a point to where when they expand, they can be ahead of that line. If my right shoulder, if I'm playing baseball and I'm hitting the fastball coming at me, and my right shoulder isn't allowed to get closer to the ball to hit it, or in hockey, or in tennis, I'm going to have a powerless toss at the golf ball, too shallow and likely a fat shot. So it's imperative that when we set up over a golf ball, we've got our weight 50-50, we're anticipating this backswing, and we can transport this right shoulder far enough so that when we hit it, we still have some angle in our right wrist, which is helping give us a lower dynamic loft, and some angle in our right elbow, so we have lower dynamic loft, and our right shoulder is farther along. If your right shoulder hangs back, you flip at it every single time because you run out of right arm. So really critical piece here. So when I hit a shot here, and this is from the great Mo Norman, the famous Canadian ball striker who passed a few years back, he used to say, I feel like I hit it with my right shoulder, and that the right shoulder gets a lot closer to the golf ball at impact. Because when it does that, you can have some angle in your right elbow, angle in your right wrist, and reduce your dynamic loft from the parabolic scoopy look that you've seen familiar with some of your golf buddies on Saturdays. When the ball goes high, but doesn't go anywhere and is subjected to getting smashed around by the wind. So let me summarize a couple bullets for you while the sun ends our session here. You know, weight has to be a little bit left at impact. That's vital. Falling back doesn't help you have a decent dynamic loft. All good strikers are on their left foot. Their weight pressure is on their left foot at impact. All good strikers have a bent right wrist and a bent right elbow at impact. All good strikers, the right shoulder is closer to the golf ball than where it started at address. Really, really important. And then as my mentor George Knudson said, don't jeopardize balance. Never do anything in the expense of balance. I know you see Bubba Watson do it, and Bubba's a super talented golfer, but try to swing within yourself within balance. You're going to play some great golf. So this is Martin Chuck. I'm signing off from the Raven Golf Club Phoenix. I really appreciate your patience with some of the shipping issues we had, and thanks so much for your support. And if you have questions, you know, post something on my YouTube channel or email me at martin@tourstriker.com. Have a great evening.